Thank you so much, of course, for keeping it beautifully flawed. It's your girl RB back with another slay for you. Now, guys, if you want to see how I accomplished this look, of course, you know what you gotta do. Gotta go straight on in. But before you do so, you know what I'm asking next. Have you subscribed to my channel? Have you? If you've not yet done so, just go ahead and hit that subscription button for me. Make sure the notification bell is turned on so you can be notified of every and all that I do moving forward. And of course, if you can go ahead and leave me a like and a comment and share it so a friend of a friend of a friend can see and know what is popping on over here. And I also want to say thank you so much for my day ones. Thank you for my newbies. Thank you guys so much for keeping it locked to Beautifully Flawed. And of course, I'm going to say with all pleasure, go straight on in. Bye. Hey guys, so I'm using my finger rather to blend out my base. I could not find where I put that brush, and I'm using an Okalon palette. Now, for a palette that is not a Juvia's, it is something that you consider to be cheap, on the cheap side. The payoff is really nice. All right, so I'm just using a Jeffree Star brush here to blend out, using that light blue as my transitional shade, and this makes applying other shades much more smoother. It makes blending out the edges much more neater. All right, so that's what I'll be doing until I step into the other shade. And I'm using slightly bright but a slightly darker blue, and we're doing this step by step. So it's going to be moving from light to dark to darker to the darkest. That's the format of which I'm using to blend the eyeshadows. Alright, so just applying that a little in and above the crease area, and of course I'm blending, moving back and forth. I'm just going back into the first shade, and this is to make sure the ends of that second color is blended out and there's no rough lines where the two shades meet. So this is me using the darkest shade in the same Okalon palette, and I'm just now darkening the crease. The look that I'm going for is a gradient look, and so I'm using the shades, as I said, we're going to be using a light, then a dark, then a darker, and then we're going to go down to the darkest shade possible. Now guys, I'm sorry guys, I'm in a parking lot and I'm trying to get this done, so I'll be going back and forth, as I said, and to make sure the colors are blended properly or smoothly, I'll be going back and forth between all the shades that I would have used so far. Now, because there's not a black in this palette, what I'll be using is a black from the James Charles palette. So if you don't have the Okalon palette, what you can do, you can use shades from different palettes. You do not have to use palettes that I use. Alright, so I'm using the black to further deepen the crease to get the look that I'm going for. So I'm going back into that mid color, that dark blue, and this really is to blend out the edges of that black. You really don't want to lose your colors, and that is what I'm trying to do. I don't want it to be a big black blob, a harsh looking thing on my eye, and so you're going to be going back into, and as you can see, I'm going back into that lighter shade of blue, and that is to blend out the dark blue before that, and I'd use the dark blue to blend out the edges of the black. As I said, this is really to get for yourself that gradient look, and you want to make sure it's smooth as possible. shape of the desired cut crease. I'm just using the micellar water option. You can use the Vaseline option. I have micellar water. I'm using that if you have a wipe, whether it be, but if you have a makeup removing wipe, that's also something that you can use. And as I said, I'm just using this to shape or to carve out the shape of the cut crease. And I'm using a white base here. Because I was using a white base, I really wanted to make sure the lid was clean. I didn't want there to be any interruption from any other colors that I laid down before. So as you can see, cutting out the crease in the desired shape that I'm looking for. Alright guys, so back in the Okalon palette. Is it Okalon or Okalon palette? I'm just using that green. Now there is on the other eye it's already done, and I used pigment, and I'll explain to you guys in a few. I'm sorry if it's really noisy, I must apologize. But yes, so I'm using a packer brush to pack the shade onto my lid to make sure that, because I really want the payoff to be pigmented, and with the white base it really helps the color to pop even more. Now this is where I'm using the neon pigment, loose pigment, and the reason I laid down the shadows before, I don't want there to be I want it to be full, if you get what I'm saying. I wanted to make sure the color payoff was rich, and so sort of use the eyeshadow to boost the color of the pigment. They might not necessarily be the exact, but the colors were actually really similar. And so that was enough for me to get a fuller look. I did not want there to be any level of transparency if I just laid down the pigments before putting down the eyeshadow. Now to make sure both are coming together and there isn't any separation, I'm just blending the two into each other, just overlapping them, and that is a very good way of blending. That's a very good blending technique, overlapping the shades at this point. Now I'd used the micellar water option to clean or to cut like a liner. So instead of using a liner, basically cut it, because I did not want there to be any buildup of colors. If you want to go ahead and do so, let me also advise, you don't want there to be any extra product, because there would have been concealer or base, the eyeshadow, and the pigment, and on top of that you would have laid down your liner, and that would have given it like a crust look, and I didn't want that. So I'm just using here my Plouise in orange. You can lay down a white base if you want to, and then on top of that you can lay down the color of choice. But because I already had the color on hand, I just basically went on in and used it. If you don't have what I have, you can actually use whatever you have to make do. Alright. So because it's a base, I still believe in setting. So I just went on in and used an orange from the palette, and I'm just setting that base. Alright, so I do not have any glitter primer, and so I'm using lash adhesive. This is just my lash glue. It's going to dry down white, and I'm using it. And you can do it also. I do it because it's cheaper. If I ain't got the money to go out and buy the glitter primer, I'm gonna use what I have. So I'm just using on the other eye. Let me just say I used some orange, but it was not popping, and so I decided to use gold instead. You can still pop the orange there if you want some uniformity, but I decided to just go ahead and pop the gold because it made sense to me. Yeah. Okay, so let me really apologize for the noise that you're hearing. Again, I'm in a parking lot, and so it's rather noisy. I'm in the middle of the town. All right, let me apologize as well. There will not be any foundation routine, and I really wanted to because my battery died. So I'm gonna be doing a foundation routine that is similar to this one. Thank you guys so much for keeping it locked to Beautifully Flawed, and thanks for watching. Bye.